New digital technologies are driving a step change in enterprise business transformation. At the Digital Twin Podcast, we explore the intersection of technology and business. What should your digital twin look like?
Good to be here. I mean, we've been trying to get this rolling for quite some time now, and we're finally here. I think our busy schedules and life gets in the way, but I think we set a little time to kind of really get out there and see if we can push the envelope around digital transformation and how the Digital Twin podcast can help accelerate some conversations and help people understand some of the pitfalls and some of the successes within digital transformation journeys.
You know what I'm excited about is we've spent a lot of time over the past few months talking about this, right? Just between you and I, and the fact that we're actually coming together to do this in a public forum and getting others to contribute and participate, I'm truly excited. I'm here to find out what other folks have to say, folks that are practitioners, folks that are wanting to learn more about it. I'm truly excited about it.
Yeah, and I think there's a space for quite a people, to actually share ideas and share thoughts and experiences around what's been successful and what hasn't been successful, and see if we can all learn from that so that we can push most of these digital engagements to the next level, right? To really start to realize some of that value that the promise that everyone is sharing out there.
The promise. That's
the
right.
promise. There's
So
a lot
guess
of
what?
promise out there.
Yeah. So why don't we start with who are we, right? What do we? What are our backgrounds? What do the listeners want to learn about us?
Yeah, why should they listen, right?
Yeah. Let's maybe start with that and
Well, tell
go
me,
from
Hari.
there.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, tell me, who are you? What's your story, Hari?
All right. Exciting stuff, right? So, I had a career change since I would say since I left college. But what drove me to the career that I chose and I spend most of my time in is the technology and the innovation and the new and exciting things, the flashing light that we see these days, right? It's the most exciting things that are happening in technology. In fact, I came to the workforce right after the tech bubble. Wasn't probably the best time for me to come to the job market. I've learned over the past few years the value of technology, but more importantly, I think what I've learned even more is that being in the field, which past 17, 18 years I've been in the field of technology, right? Working directly with customers. What I've learned is technology is just one part of the puzzle. And we've seen the technology change drastically over the past decade, whether it's, efficiency gained through improving workloads via virtualization or all kinds of different things that come and gone. But today, I think we are sitting in a very sort of unique time period. I don't think there is a single technology that's driving a magical transformation. But we still talk about digital transformation and Industry 4.0 and IIoT and all of that. But monitoring has been around. Connectivity has been around. Software has been around. Okay, maybe the methodology, whether it's waterfall or agile may have changed, but none of these things are new. And virtualization has been around for more than a decade. So what's driving today's change in business models and drastic change in operational transformation? What is it, that's changing, that side of the business? And so to me, this is where technology and business really comes together. And having had the opportunity over the last 18 years to be out in the field with different types of customers from different types of industries, I really feel that this is kind of where that rubber meets the road. I'm so excited about really driving the technology to where that delivers value to business, and how all of these, I would say, broad set of technologies are coming together in a way to completely transform an industry or many industries, as a matter of fact. So to me, that's the exciting part. That's what drives me to what I'm doing today. That's what drives me to this conversation and our conversations, you know, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And I think that's what triggered me to even get this started with you.
Wow.
What
Well,
about you?
it's a great similar story. You know, been in the industry practicing for quite some time now. I'd say over the last 15 years, in and out of different technologies. Came in through just right before the Great Recession. So we're kind of in similar paths on how things and culture and organizations work within themselves, right? I have a vast variety of background and interests in not only technologies, but I think what's very interesting in my experience and what I've seen is you can have some of the best technologies, you can have some of the great tools out there, but augmenting that with what day-to-day culture and how people operate today um, is gonna be a big factor here. I mean, we hear today about driving cultures to be more of a data centered culture, right? Being able to make decisions with more data, being able to have data influence all the decision making throughout the organization. Now, while that's a very exciting and very ambitious goal for organizations, the reality is most of these organizations that are transforming today have been around for years, right? So to move a mountain, to move a culture over to a new type of environment, new standard operating procedures, having new talent be trained, and understanding how the new principles of digital transformation and how data is used to make decisions and drive behavior is quite fascinating in my opinion, and also from my experience, it's not a very easy change,
Yeah.
even with all the wonderful technologies we have out there. So for me, what's exciting about this is having, the crossroads of technology and organizational adaptation or
Mhm.
adoption of these technologies, but also the the ability to kind of somewhat be a change or transformational, you know, group of technologies or leaders that can really drive this change. Because if it's not sustainable, if it's not adoptable, it really becomes a nice little story that people say that, wow, we really thought about that and it didn't really pan out. So in my point of view, and what we're trying to address here is how do we have a pragmatic approach to really understanding the value that customers want? What's possible with the certain adoption rates that are acceptable with the organization today. You know, a new organization that's building from the ground up may have a lot more room to be building the foundation and the technologies to become a data centric organization, right? To make decisions that way. And for most of the people that are transforming, keyword, from what they
Yeah.
used to be to where they want to be, is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but they have to, right?
Yeah.
Because new business are coming in, the competitive nature is changing, the landscapes, the way to be more flexible with your operations, getting more out of your assets from all types of industries is going to be critical, right? And having better efficiencies around your workers and your productivity, things like that are going to be key value drivers moving forward. So that's kind of where the excitement is
Yeah.
in our realm, and we've had discussions and
Yep.
stories around different things on that nature, and I think it'd be really interesting, once we really start putting that picture together for the audience to really understand and where some of those anchors, where they should really anchor their strategies at, and how they can actually execute in a way that's sustainable and a high adoption rate for their industry and environment. So I'm excited about it. I really am.
Yeah,
So
and besides the knowledge and experience that we have gained over the years, I think what we're going to gain from this podcast and our audience is going to gain from the podcast is our ability to bring practitioners on this podcast and interview them and have these discussions about where the successes have been and where's the hard part of transformation, right? Where you talked about culture and change and Things that we or most often isn't covered in a lot of articles or topics, right? Because it's all about technology, and we want to really cover the whole gamut of things. What is transforming? What's causing the transformation? How are they transforming? Where are they failing? Where are they being successful? Right. So we want to capture as much as we can. Besides our own experience and background, we want to bring some experts on the call as well.
Yeah, so it's a nice way of educating as well as getting some mind share in an environment or an ecosystem where people can really start to leverage some of the learnings that have been out there for now, years and
Yeah.
decades. When we did talk about this podcast, we looked at, a few areas. How do we structure this in a way that the audience is going to get some relevant information that's timely, and how are they going to correlate that with some of lessons learned and some experiences in the past, whether it's from me or you, or
Yeah.
from a guest that we interview, and how can they put that into application or into use tomorrow, right? Or at least start to think about the pragmatic approaches or steps that they might want to be taking, and maybe even know who to bring in, right? We're going to have a lot of different people involved in this podcast, from technology vendors to change management groups to potential clients that may want to know more, right? That
Yeah.
have gone through some of this. So I think it's important to outline those few things. And I think current news is something that's going to be relevant, right? People
Yeah.
are always seeing what's relevant and how that correlates to what's been done in the past, and
Yeah.
really lining that up with some, pragmatic approaches and steps. That's kind of what I
Yeah.
envision. I think that's a good way to kind of base this. And you know, I think we can also adjust, as the audience starts, you know, really looking at what really resonates and how we pull that. But I think over, the first few seasons, we should kind of look at some of that in the view. I think we discussed a little bit of that. I mean, what's your take? I mean,
Yeah, the
you
only
kind
thing
of align
I
with it?
think you're right on the money. I think the only thing that I would add to that is, we talked about discussing technology and tools, but we want to expand out of that, go into strategy and tactics, and thereby really focusing on, um, you know, decision makers in the organization where these changes are being applied, right? So, why would somebody pick a technology, and how is this going to impact their organization? How is that, going to transform them? So really, we want to broaden the audience, really focus more on the decision making side of the business, where they would be able to influence both the culture and the technology, not just one, right?
And I think that's an important point there. I like what you said there, because once we start broadening the audience, and understanding the key decision makers and roles that are involved in digital transformation in general for an organization, people really get surprised on how far it actually reaches and how many
Yeah.
people it touches. So it's very important to actually get a good idea of who some of those key linchpin stakeholders are, and some of the influencers that really affect the overall adoption and change of some of these
What
things. So.
industry are we going to talk about? We didn't cover that.
Yeah, I think we can, I come from more of I spent a lot of time in the industrial space, oil and gas space, doing a few things in manufacturing as well. We can start with some of those key central theme topics and verticals. I mean, you've come from similar backgrounds
Yep.
as well, right, from the industrial side. So I think we start there, and we start, broadening, because, we can say this is the industrial segment or a vertical segment, or oil and gas segment, but if you start looking at the whole transformation, it crosses
Absolutely.
the business value chain across into, from marketing to everything you
Yeah.
can think of. So we'll start with the operational side on the industrial, and then we'll kind of work our way to see what really resonates with some of the
You know
audience.
what
But I
I've
think we have
also
that focus.
Yeah, and what I've also learned is, even within the industry, folks want to learn from others, right? If you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you want to learn from what oil and gas is doing. If you're in the oil and gas industry, you want to know, learn what is changing in the discrete environment. So I think this is going to be a bit of a broader approach, because our focus primarily is on the business and the transformation of the businesses, right? And so, while our primary focus is going to be around Industry 4.0 and similar topics, there's no reason for us to, you know, not look at other examples that are valuable that we can potentially bring to the table, right?
Yeah,
Whether that's an
absolutely.
audience or whether that's a guest or technology.
Yeah, I mean, we can spotlight different things that may have, transcendent across the industry, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, it just really, it's exciting, right? Because I mean, we're here creating the dish here of what we and the audience are gonna kind of start resonating with, and getting feedback from them is also going to be a really neat experience, because that's going to make us adjust a little bit on some of the areas that we want to focus on as well, right? So
Yeah, we also talked about focusing on companies that are new in the business. Maybe a brand new idea, concept may not be commercialized, but we want to showcase them. They may be VCs, PE firms, or angel investors that are either invested or interested or invested in it, right? And we may want to look at them. We want to find out what problems are they solving in the business. Technology is great, but what are they focused on? What problems are they solving? And those are things that I would love to showcase. What do you think?
no, I think that's perfect. I think that's great. I think, you know, technology is a big enabler, right? I think it's not the only piece in this transformation, but it is an enabler. And
Mm-hmm.
understanding how you can utilize that technology to give you that 10x, or that, that extra, push into that next sphere, whether it's becoming more competitive, whether it's increasing more production, so whatever it is, I think we should definitely showcase.
Yeah,
Uh, Definitely, technologies are out there that are maybe not in the mainstream yet, but they're on the rise. And you know, I don't want to call it a Shark Tank, but maybe we can have somewhat of
yeah,
a smaller version of that, and have them throw a pitch, and we can showcase and have some questions from the audience, and maybe from us, to kind of validate and see where these fit. And
yeah.
that can be some great content for them as well, to see what's
Absolutely.
out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's there's a lot of innovation happening, both in large companies as well as small companies. So it's important to discuss them both, for our sake and for our audience sake. So what do you think we want to cover? And you and I talked about it. Maybe we can discuss a little bit about what's upcoming. What do we want to cover in the first two podcasts?
Yeah, so I think the theme of the first season, or the first series, I think we want to kind of structure around, business value, some of the things around, you know, how the culture is a big component in this, and how we can actually start with some small areas, or some areas that are really easier to change. As I say, you don't change culture right away in a 180 with technology. You kind of have to make some tweaks and turns, and you turn that wheel as little as possible, so people don't know really the change is happening until it happens.
Yep.
What are some of those strategies and tactics and some technologies, and themes around that can help, get some quick wins in an organization, get people, you know, excited about this transformation, and selling it upwards, right? And convincing the management that this is something that's really beneficial, and showing value for the organization.
Yeah.
Also, I think, you know, should companies transform?
Yeah.
Is
That's a
every
great
company
topic.
is every company meant to transform, right? I mean, everyone's saying you should, but if you start looking at the cost benefit and the value of you putting effort into transforming 0.5%, what is that worth to your business or your segment or industry?
Yeah.
Does it make sense, right? I mean, so put in some logic and pragmatic approaches on should you or should you not transform your business with some technologies and some different standard operating procedures, is
Yeah.
also another great area.
Could be a
I think
matter of whether to transform or whether to transform now. Is it a matter of time? It could
Yeah.
be, right? And the other thing we discussed is how do we want to structure these conversations, right? We want to talk a little bit about the news cycle, things that are dominating the news. I think is probably important for our audience to know, whether it's mergers, acquisitions, a certain technology, or whatever it is that we feel is appropriate that we can cover. But then, one of the key goals for us is to really drive use cases and conversations about what value technology is bringing to enterprises, right? And
hmm
so there's going to be focus on that, and then Really, we can, as we mature our podcast, we can take questions, we can take feedback. Maybe folks can, tweet us, message us, and we could, either take that feedback and continue to mold the topics or even address those towards the end of these podcasts. Um, Probably at some point, we're also going to start getting guests on the podcast.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
want to get this rhythm going before we want to get that going. That's what we agreed on, correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and I think we could even see eventually this evolving into some maybe spot live sessions where we might have some live
absolutely.
interactive podcasting with some, you know, could be potential startups at a location that they want to showcase technology, or it could be interviewing some great, practitioners out in the field that can give us some real world examples on how things are actually happening out there.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it'll evolve in what the audience is really, gravitating towards. So,
I agree.
that's part of the journey as well when we decided to do this, right? Well, I do appreciate the time for y'all joining us in this intro and first digital podcast. Um, Info session for our new coming up season. So, Hari and Omar signing out, and thank you all for joining.